We're so fortunate that we have the opportunity to do that, particularly during this pandemic era. Temples are closing. Lockdown again. I just got word this morning, Dallas Temple has gone into a lockdown situation. So we have to be very careful. We have to take it very seriously, because otherwise we lose the opportunity for a valuable association and wonderful days like we have here today. So, why do we worship Govardhan Hill? Let's start with Bhagavad Gita, the basic text of spiritual life, which is the foundation of everything that we know about Sri Krishna and his pastimes, and that help us to establish our foothold in Krishna consciousness. So from the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse that describes where Krishna says why he comes to this world. It's rather a famous verse, I'm sure you know it, so we can chant it together. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna says, to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I myself appear, millennium after millennium. Sometimes we first come across verses of Bhagavad Gita, we read them with almost a limiting set of blinders on. Whereas actually these verses have a very, very broad and deep purport or meaning in the short phrases that comprise the verse. Here it describes to deliver the pious, paritranaya sadhunam vinasayatu duskritam. So to deliver the pious. A limited view of that verse might give us the impression that what we're talking about is the difficulties and struggles in this world, which we all need shelter from, which we all need to be rescued from. And that's the extent of what Krishna does when he comes to this world. But it's actually much deeper and broader than that. To deliver the pious, what does Krishna do when he comes? He displays his unlimited eternal pastimes. And those pastimes are eternal and unlimited, yes, in smashing the demons and saving the devotees from all kinds of calamities of this material world. But it also includes the wonderful, divine, loving exchanges that he has with his devotees. That's also Paritranaya Sadhunam. And so we should meditate on that, especially on days like this when the question comes, why does Krishna come? He comes to give us an opportunity, to attract us actually. What does Krishna mean? Attraction, attractive. So he comes and he's attractive. What he does is attractive. What he says is attractive. And by being attracted to him and developing loving relationships with him, that's how we're delivered from this material world. Not just that we're saved from some calamity by not having something fall on our head or something like that, or attacked by some demonic person. So Paritranaya Sadhanam, to deliver the pious. So he comes for that purpose. Of course, he does not come alone. It's described that Krishna travels with an entourage. It's like a president or a king or something. If they're going, it's not like, they just show up by themselves and knock on the door. There's a whole arrangement. Well, beforehand, there's an arrangement made. Preparations are there. When they actually arrive, so many people are accompanied. And all facilities accompany that president or king when they travel. So in the same way, Krishna, he doesn't come to this world alone. He comes with all of his associates. Indeed, he does us one better than we may do ourselves. He brings his own abode with him. He's not just, dependent on someplace else and doesn't know how it's going to go. No, he's got it all arranged. Namas Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigra Purna Suro Nityamukto Vinatvam Nama Namano. His holy name is not different than him. His pastimes, his leela, his associates, they're all non-different. And so he comes with them. But there's a very interesting thing that's described in Garga Samhita. A very interesting thing described in Garga Samhita. That one time, Radharani expressed that she was hesitant to come when Krishna was coming. Krishna was coming. He's all his entourage has to come with him. But Radharani, she was a little hesitant. No, I don't know if I want to go with you. I don't know if I can be happy there. She was thinking like this, described in Garga Samhita. So she expressed like that when Krishna said to her, okay, we have to get ready, it's time for us to go and manifest our pastimes, to attract people out of this material world back home, back to Godhead, so they can join with us. It's time for that. So prepare yourself to go. No, I won't go unless three things happen. Does anybody know what those three things happen? What's one of them? Give me one. Yes, Giriraj Govardhan. She said, I won't go because I don't know if I can be happy unless Giriraj Govardhan is there. What is it? Yamuna Mai. Unless there's River Jamuna is there, I don't know if I'll feel happy, so I won't go. And Raj, the dust of Vrindavan. Unless that dust of Vrindavan is there, then I won't go. So she told Krishna like that. And Krishna said, don't worry. They all are already there. They're already there. Govardhan is there, Jamuna Devi is there, and the dust of Vrindavan is there. And so when she heard this, oh, very good, then I have no problem. I'll go with you. Now, there are three things about Braj that haven't changed since Krishna's Leela time. Still today, you can go there and there are three things which are still present that were present at the time when Krishna was personally on the planet 5,000 years ago. Who knows what three things are there still today, one at a time? If you gave an answer before, let someone else have the opportunity. What are the three things that are still today in Vrindavan? Nobody? Yes. You can say three. Govardhan, Giriraj Maharaj ki. Yeah. Jamuna Mai ki. The Braj dust, Braj Raj ki. Still today you can find these three things from Krishna's pastimes so long ago. And so when we go on pilgrimage, when we go to Vrindavan, we get the opportunity to interact with the very elements that Radharani herself called essential for her descent with Krishna. Giriraj Govardhan, Jamuna Mai, and the dust of Vrindavan. Actually, we have one devotee in our community here, Chadaratma Prabhu, who often goes at this time of year. Of course, for the pandemic, he didn't go. But he's very fond of going to Govardhan, Prikrama of Govardhan, And what he does is roll in the dust of Vrindavan. He rolls in, he's very fond of doing that. Actually, Indradumna Swami calls him when you get to this sandy spot on the backside of Govardhan. He says, Chaturatma! Snaps his finger, and Chaturatma's rolling in the dust of Vrindavan. We should all be so fortunate to do that. Without shame, especially that dust which is close to Govardhan Hill. Raj is all over the Holy Dham, but specifically at Govardhan Hill, you're getting 2 for 1. Jamuna Devi is a little distant, but Govardhan and the dust of Vrindavan are close together. You should take advantage of that. So, we all know the story, history, and I won't repeat it here, about how Krishna convinced his father Nanda Maharaj to change from Indra Puja to Govardhan Puja. There was some discussion involving worship of the demigods, Karma Mimamsa, the role of Karma Mimamsa. There was some discussion, philosophical discussion. Even though Krishna was only 7 years old, he very respectfully exchanged conversation with his father Nanda Maharaj, who was obviously a very learned person. But we won't go into that. We'll go right to the crux of the matter. What was the winning argument that Krishna made to convince Nanda Maharaj to change from Indra Puja to Govardhan Puja? Because if we know that what argument he made, it very interestingly reveals something very special about Sri Vrindavan Dham. It's like a secret meaning. Sometimes we skip over it. They had the argument, Karma Mimamsa, worship of demigods. Krishna convinced his father, they worshiped the Govardhan Hill. But why? What was the quenching argument that was made by Krishna? That's the important thing. What was the important argument made? Now, to understand how it was important, we need to back up a little bit and go back to the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Srila Sanatana Goswami. We know that he instructed Sanatana Goswami, what was for 3 months? 3 continuous months? How long was the instruction of Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami? 3 months or something like that. Quite some time he instructed him. And he made a point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made the point to stress that there are 3 purposes to all the Vedas. There are 3 purposes. He was given a hermeneutical approach to understanding all the Vedas, a framework by which you can understand what the teachings of the Vedas are. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving to Sanatana Goswami when he spoke to him. And there were 3 things that formed a framework of understanding all the Vedas, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the following acharyas. Those 3 things were Sambandha. Maybe you know the definition of these things. I don't need to hog everything. But Sambandha, what does Sambandha mean? Yes, Prabhupada Priya. Relationship. Abhideya. Abhideya was the second. Can you say it louder? Yes. How to act according to that sambandha relationship. The ways and means, as you said. So, sambandha, Abhideya, and final, prayojan, the goal, achieving the goal. And what is that goal? Krishna Prema. Krishna Prema is that. So the goal of all the Vedas is Krishna Prema. How to get there is Abhideya. And just to encourage us, very important, it puts us on the path, understanding what is the relationship. What is our relationship with the Supreme Lord? Those three things Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed to Sanatana Goswami. Now, why is this important? Why is this important? It's important because it's key to understanding Krishna's convincing argument to get Nanda Maharaj to change from Indra Puja to Govardhan Puja. Now I'm going to read from you a section from the Krishna book where Srila Prabhupada explains this, his argument. And I'm also going to read from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary about the same thing. Because they give interesting views, just like a jewel has different facets. And if you take this facet or that facet, you get to see different aspects of the same truth. So, in Krishna's argument, he stressed relationship. He stressed relationship. What is our relationship with Govardhan Hill more so than Indra? That's the convincing argument. And so here what Prabhupada says, it's beautiful. As far as, this is Krishna speaking to Nanda Maharaj, as far as we are concerned, we do not need to go to another city or village or foreign country. There are palatial buildings in the cities, but we are satisfied living in this forest of Vrindavan. If you know the children's bhajan, we are satisfied living in this forest of Vrindavan. There are palatial buildings in the cities, but we are satisfied living in this forest of Vrindavan. Our specific relationship is with Govardhan Hill and Vrindavan Forest, and nothing more. I therefore request you, my dear Father, to begin a sacrifice which will satisfy the local brahmanas and Govardhan Hill, and let us have nothing to do with Indra. Beautiful Prabhupada's Krishna book describing this important argument. Where is our relationship? If we don't have our sambandha established, how can we move on to Abhideya and Prayojana? If we don't know where we're going, if we're not oriented by our relationship and that relationship exists, then we'll definitely not reach the Prayojana of the goal. Simple. So here's what Vishwanath Chakravarti says in his comment on these same verses from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the word Govardhan means that which nourishes the cows. Since Govardhan Hill provides abundant grass to feed the cows, the cowherd men should worship it because their occupation depends on having healthy, well-fed cows. This is explained in two verses. Krishna said, our home is not in the city or village. Because we move around herding cows, our home is the forest and mountains. So that is the goal, my dear Prabhus. Our goal is not palatial buildings. Our goal is not luxury, soft bed. Those things should not motivate us. What should motivate us? What is our sambandha? What is our relationship with Krishna? Krishna says that he's satisfied, and obviously the Vrajavasis are satisfied, living in the forest of Vrindavan and having Govardhan Hill be there. It's a rural setting. It's not downtown New York City. That is the goal, ladies and gentlemen, to live in the rustic village of Vrindavan and enjoy the pleasure pastimes of Krishna. There's an interesting story that sort of cements this, at least I hope it'll cement it in your minds. And it took place in Bailvan, which is one of the other forests of Vrindavan, near to Govardhan Hill. There in Bailvan, it's also called Shrivan. It's called Shrivan because the goddess of fortune is there in that forest, undergoing austerities. Now, why does the goddess of fortune have to undergo austerities? What is the necessity of that? She undergoes austerities because she wants to gain entrance into the Rasa Lila. She heard described by Narada Muni Krishna's Rasa Lila, and she's attracted to want to go there. But she can't go. She can't go. She can watch from a distance. So she's in Bailvan looking over the Jamuna to the other side, it's described by our acharyas, watching the Rasa dance. But she can't enter the Rasa dance. Why can't the goddess of fortune enter the Rasa dance? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also discussed this with Venkata Bhatt in South India. We won't go so much into that, but just take it that she couldn't enter. Why could she not enter? That's the question. Well, our acharyas have described that, and I'll just read it because it's quite a shocking statement, but it helps fix us in our sambandha. But Lakshmi Devi, being the goddess of fortune, is not willing to do simple village chores like the gopis, such as picking up cow dung patties, milking cows, churning butter, etc. As the acharyas have described, she's not willing to do these things. And what is the sambandha we just discussed a few minutes ago? What is Krishna like? He says that's our life. Making cow patties, milking cows, living in the forest. If we don't have that as our sambandha, our goal, then we'll be like Lakshmi Devi. We may know that Rasa Lila is going on. We may observe Rasa Lila, but can we enter Rasa Lila? No. So that's a very, very important instruction because it fixes us with this idea that our goal needs to be to live in such a way that we establish a relationship with Vraja, with Krishna, with all of Vraja, as described in the Jai Radha Madhava Bhajan, that we develop and accept a life as it's shown by the residents of Vrindavan. That should be our sambandha. And once we have that fixed, then we can go on through the process of Abhideya, following in the footsteps of a resident of Vrindavan, and we can that way achieve the prayojana, the goal of love of God, and enter into Sri Vrindavan Dham. Otherwise, it's not possible. So this argument that Krishna made to his father is very, very instructive, that it's based on our relationship with Govardhan Hill and the forest of Vrindavan, that we should not worship Indra, but we should worship Govardhan Hill. Very, very important point. Now let me just give you a few examples from Ananda Vrindavan Champu about why Govardhan Hill is especially dear to and worshipped by the Vaishnavas. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 21, there's the following verse. Of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. O my best friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram, along with their calves, cows, and cowherd friends, with all kinds of necessities. Water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. In this way, the hill offers respects to the Lord. Being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Govardhan Hill appears very jubilant. So taking shelter of Govardhan Hill doesn't mean that we'll get the nuts and bolts for our factories to work. But it means that all the simple living necessities of life are provided by the hill in great abundance. Prabhupada says in the purport here, real welfare was being carried out by Govardhan Hill, since the hill was supplying sweet waters for drinking by the cows and community, sweet grasses for the cows to eat, abundant fruits and flowers, shady caves to shelter Vrajabasis, and much more. Krishna thus convinced Nanda Maharaj to use the paraphernalia meant for worshipping Indra to worship Govardhan Hill. Fruitive activities, Karma Mimamsa or whatever, worship of the demigods, whatever, they can provide material necessities only. But we are not materially only beings. We're spiritual beings. And we want eternal life. And what facilitates that? Govardhan Hill facilitates that by providing all these wonderful places which can be utilized to satisfy Krishna, to make Krishna happy. That's all. Just to make Krishna happy. That's all we're interested in. So that verse focused on the cowherd boys. One thing about Govardhan Hill is that Govardhan Hill provides for devotees in all the rasas with Krishna. It's not just a place for the cowherd boys. It's a place that gives facility for all the rasas of Krishna. As I mentioned, Srimati Radharani didn't want to go because Govardhan Hill wouldn't be there. If Govardhan Hill wasn't going to be there, because then her pastimes with Krishna would be limited in some way. Govardhan expands it. So here's another description about how the relationship between Krishna, Govardhan Hill, and the Vrajabasis. Govardhan is decorated with long lines of forests. Cascading waterfalls caress all sides of Govardhan. Bhumandala is made pleasant by the Lokaloka mountain. Similarly, whereas Govardhan pleases the eyes of all the devotees. Govardhan is more glorious than banyan tree, is made glorious by banyan trees that distribute joy to everyone. The interior of its caves are the embodiment of bliss. It is Govardhan's nature to protect the deer and other forest creatures. Govardhan offers many thrones made of cooling stones for the sitting pleasure of Krishna. Its flat, jewel-studded areas await to serve Krishna's rasa dance. Its wonderful caves look more enchanting than temples made of jewels. For serving Krishna, there are many flower canopies that pour down fragrant pollen when shaken by the wind. The cool, dense forest provides soothing relief from the hot sun. Animals such as deer and tiger live there in peace and harmony. This is what Govardhan does to facilitate the pastimes of the Lord. Not performing some miracles, but just providing a beautiful rustic setting for loving exchanges, as a backdrop to loving exchanges for Krishna and his devotees of all rasas. I have just two more. At this time, the joyful cowherd boys painted Krishna's body with colored mineral powders. As his friends surrounded him and happily danced for his pleasure, Krishna floated in a river of bliss. Then he wandered around Govardhan hill performing various ecstatic pastimes. As Krishna's heart is full of rasa and decorated with the mark of Lakshmi, similarly Govardhan hill is full of beauty and a wealth of fresh fruit and edible roots during the rainy season. Krishna relished the sweet natural taste of the various fruits and roots brought by his intimate friends, whose hearts surged with happiness. Bound by their pure affection, Krishna easily finished the foodstuff and they collected from Govardhan hill. So does it sound like a place that you'd be interested in going? Okay, not okay. Speakers, thank you. Does it sound like a place that you'd like to go? Yes. You can go there, even today. And if you have the eyes, you can go around Govardhan. You can see all these wonderful features that are still there. But if you're thinking in ways in which aren't completely purified, you may see just the monkeys and not the beautiful forest of Vrindavan and Govardhan. So I'll just stop there, and maybe others have some comment or questions or reflections on worshiping Govardhan Hill, which, by the way, is done with the feet. Parikrama means worship with the feet. You worship with your feet walking around Govardhan Hill outside here. So don't neglect to do that. It's easy to do. So does anyone, questions, comments?
I have a question.
Please.
As Mother Lakshmi Devi is not convinced the lifestyle of Gopi is higher than her, there has to be motivation why she is doing austerity if she is not convinced that is higher, in order to adapt.
Well, my understanding from reading this reflection that was given by devotee was that because she's continuing to do the austerities, she knows that her reluctance to collect the cow dung patties and everything won't get her into the rasa dance. So she's, just like we undergo different types of austerities or penances, like in Kartik month, we don't want to eat sweets or something. Why? To show some sacrifice. I'm willing to give this up. Help me overcome my anarthas. And so if she's still doing penances and she knows why she can't enter, then I would assume that she's doing the penances to get rid of, to completely purify herself, so she's ready to take that sambandha, that relationship with Krishna.
Also, are you suggesting us to get out of the city and come to village, or?
Well, I think, at least personally, I can say that that's one of the biggest challenges about Krishna consciousness as given to us by Srila Prabhupada, is that he wanted farm community. He wanted self-sufficiency. You see in those pictures in 1968, he was in New Vrindavan, just some little place, a shack on top of a mountain someplace. And he was very happy there. And he was encouraging the devotees that we need more of this. So we know that Prabhupada wanted, not just for survival things. It wasn't just a survival tactic, the world's going to end, you need something to survive. That was there too. He said people will come to us. But to get us more in the mood of Vrindavan by being dependent on the Supreme Lord and nature as opposed to nuts and bolts.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes?
I know Radha Govinda Maharaj, he mentions a few times when he is giving classes, and he's the real good speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, and he says that in order to actually understand the Bhagavatam, you almost have to have a village life. This is all the examples that are given, the analogies the Bhagavatam describes. He says you have to know the village life. So he also says like that.
Thank you. Yes, Baba, please. Behind you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was just thinking, and I don't know if this is something that you want to endorse, but I had a thought when you were talking about how the reason, the sort of the clincher in Krishna's argument was that our relationship is not with Indra. Indra is off in the heavenly planets. Our relationship is here, right here in Vraj, right in our local community with Govardhan Hill. And I was thinking if we could sort of extrapolate that concept that because now we're sort of in this global village where we can communicate with people on the other side of the planet and have, Zoom classes and all that. But at the same time, we have our local communities. We have the devotees that are right here and now in person. And these are really the people that we have relationships with. And of course, Krishna is also here. So sometimes we get a little restless thinking we need something more, we need something from outside. But actually it's like the local situation is in many ways perfect and complete. I don't know if that's something that we could extend to try to be more focused on the here and now and the devotees that somehow Krishna has put us all in the situation together. It's not by chance that we're with certain devotees and we interact with devotees regularly. And I was thinking that from this pastime we could infer that we need to focus more on our local communities and our person-to-person relationships with devotees rather than trying to stretch our consciousness, around the planet. And I don't know.
That's a very good point. And Krishna stressed, and probably he writes in the Krishna book, local brahmanas, our relationships going on the local brahmanas. But guess what? The world is going in such a way now, but this may be all we have. We think it's a luxury. We can get on and go to a Zoom class in Sao Paulo, Brazil or something. But there's no guarantee that technology is going to last, and we may be just with the local folks. So cultivate relationships. That's a very important point to make. I think we should definitely see like that. We now have the opportunity to travel widely, but that's been restricted in so many ways because of the pandemic. So we do need to think, and even if we didn't have all those things motivating us, I think appreciating those that you are serving with closely is a major part of advancement in one's Krishna consciousness, because we tend to, at least in our mind, I should say we, I always do that, I'm sorry. I tend to belittle others that you have constant interaction with, and you see faults rather than benefits in their character. That alone will help us advance tremendously. We can get out of that and develop that local respect and take shelter in it, that there's no alternative. So I agree with you. Thank you. Anything else before we stop? Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.